Hello, everyone. So let's get into it. You are not protecting your growth, you are postponing it. So, in episode 4 of the Remarkable Edge Executive Power Series, I'm calling out the leadership trap that's quietly costing elite professionals and organizations millions. And you are playing not to lose, which is different from playing to win. So think about this. You built the influence, you built the trust, but have you built the momentum? And that's what we're going to talk about in this episode as we unpack how perfectionism is killing performance. And then we're going to talk about the 4-part strategic framework for high stakes decision making and what happens when leadership becomes overmanaged and underexposed. So, if you're ready to measure where your leadership model is shrinking your results, be sure to check out the Leadership Intelligence and Resilience Index. It is down in the description box below and in the featured section. So, welcome everyone to the Remarkable Edge Live Show series, the Executive Power Series. I am your host, Dr. Vernita Glenn-White. I go by Dr. V, the Brilliance Solutionist and Master Recalibration Strategist for Brilliance, Authority, and Precision. I am an executive advisor and leadership intelligence architect for high stakes organizations. I don't just coach or consult, I systemize transformation. From education systems to enterprise teams, I've spent 20 plus years helping leaders close the execution gap and build intelligent ecosystems that scale. This show is where bold execution meets intelligent design, where elite professionals come to rethink leadership, realign performance, and build organizations that actually work. So if you're done playing by outdated rules and ready to architect the results that drive revenue, retention, and real influence, let's get to work. So let's go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. We are talking about risk-proof leadership and how it's killing your revenue, not because you're unqualified, and not because you're failing, but because you've built your leadership around protection and not progression. Let me say that again. It is not because you're unqualified. It is not because you're failing. It is because you've built your leadership around protection and not progression. So let me be clear. Safety is the most expensive habit in your leadership portfolio. Now, don't get me wrong, safety is important, but not at your expense. So, what happens? What does this look like when safety is, when you're looking at the wrong type, quote unquote, the not so right type of safety? That means every decision is delayed. That means every opportunity is passed up because it wasn't, quote unquote, perfect yet or just right. And every system that hasn't been disrupted because you think in your mind that it's still working. So just because it's still working doesn't mean it is the best thing for you to be doing for yourself or your team or your organization or your company. And that's where your profit, your momentum, and your influence is dying. So you can be a 2-person company or a Fortune 500 company. All of these things still matter no matter the level. So we're going to talk about the shift and what can you do. So this is especially true for high functioning executives and leaders who look like they have it all together. And I'm talking to you because you have mastered the optics, right? All of that, everything looks great on the outside, and you built the trust because that's what you're supposed to do in your position, and you've proven your consistency, and that is why you are where you are today. All of those things are great. But there's a trap to that, and you are in the trap, and you may not even know it yet because, and this hit personally for me as well, and I've seen this with the executives and leaders that I've worked with, you are leading from your last win. Now, that can be in your personal life as well, but we're going to stick with our careers and our business for this. And think about it. Your last big win, that you're still kind of on that high, and that's the place where you're leading, and you've replaced your innovation with iteration. Now, don't get me wrong, we love some good iterations, but not from a place where it's causing you to stay safe. And your team or the people that are around you, they think that you're the visionary, but you haven't made a bold decision in years. Ask yourself, when was the last time I made a decision that shook me to my core, that made me feel a little like, I don't know. And a lot of times, if you haven't, that means you're avoiding that type of decision making for your company. because you're playing not to lose. And like I said in the beginning, that is not the same as playing to win. And if you haven't felt exposed lately, you're not leading, you are hiding inside of your own expertise. Now, we're not talking about the scandal type of exposed, right? We're talking about that transparency where you start making a decision and you're not quite sure and you feel like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think about me? That's right there when you're right on that edge of doing something bold and disruptive. But a lot of times, because it's like, you know what, let me step back because I built this reputation, I built this level of expertise, and I don't want to feel exposed in that way. And that is where you're playing safe, and that is where you are playing not to lose. So let's talk about this strategic risk framework. There is a system to that, and risk is great, not just reckless risk. We're talking about strategic risk. So it's time for you to rewire your leadership with strategic risk framework designed to help high-level professionals and elite level leaders who want to lead with intelligence and not indecision. Again, you want to lead with intelligence and not indecision. So step number one is doing a risk tolerance audit. And all of these, you can seek guidance and expertise to do this on the outside so you're not so close to your own results. And that's where someone like me comes in. So looking at your risk tolerance audit, where are you holding back? Now, a lot of times, I'll be honest, even though we're talking about your business and your career, it can start from a personal place. And we can talk, that's a whole nother thing that I talk about in my other show. But coming from your personal perspective and in your career business, where are you holding back? What conversations, moves, or initiatives are you avoiding? And you know them. You know exactly what you need to be doing, but you have to be honest with yourself and say, well, what am I actually avoiding? And then taking a step further, why am I avoiding it? Step number two is a decision velocity metrics. You're looking at how long does it take you to go from insight to ideas. Again, you're saying like, okay, we have these ideas. How fast is it going to take us to get into action and execute? Because slow equals costly and stagnant. Safety equals being stagnant, and you don't want to do that. So that is called a decision velocity. Those are called decision velocity metrics. How long does it take us to go from idea to execution? The third step you can do is a scenario planning zones. This was all that I did, especially working in the education system, whether that was in K-12 or at the university level and the school district level, because again, those are like big companies as well. And so you're looking at what have you actually planned for disruption instead of avoiding it, especially in the classroom at all levels. You look at what is the worst case scenario and how can we put things in place, like if this happens, how do we recover it? Now, this is not, being doom and gloom, but things happen. In a previous episode, I talked about the Marines and how they planned for, even when one of their candidates dropped their rifles, they made sure they had a protocol in place that was still up to their standards so that they can recover without all of this chaos. So you are the high growth leader, and it is your responsibility to engineer the tension and then to train your teams to operate inside of that tension. There are times where you cannot avoid it, right? So what are you going to do to lead your team through that, or avoid having the breakdown when the tension occurs? And you can plan for those things. That's what high level leaders do. And then the last step, or the fourth step, is the leadership exposure score. And this is not the scandal exposure, right? So you have to think about this. Ask yourself this question. When was the last time you led with a position that stretched your credibility, your strategy, or your state? So think about it. Like, okay, when was the last time I took a stance? When was the last time I said, I am going to do this, even though this may not be in my full wheelhouse of expertise? Do you trust your ability to lead through something that you don't really know the full outcome? And that's what, this is all about, because strategic disruption, I'm going to say that disruption is not chaos. And I know you think you want everything quiet and safe, and that is not the goal. You want to make sure that you are leading from a place where your disruption is the leadership that refuses to settle. So let me say that again. Your disruption is not chaos. I know a lot of times people are like, well, I just want things to be nice, calm, simple, but that doesn't get you to your next level in your business or your career. But you have to do this strategically, and you want to make sure that you are disrupting from a place of your leadership where you are not settling. So how do you stay on your strategic edge? You have to understand that caution does not scale. And I want you to filter this through the lens of your company's vision and the purpose of why you are at that company or why you're leading that company. And then the same in your career. If you're going to be this entrepreneur, what is the vision that you have that you see for yourself? And you're filtering all of everything that I'm saying, you're filtering that through that lens, because I don't want you to be out here reckless, right? So you have to understand that caution, as it relates to your where you're moving your company or your career, caution doesn't scale, and perfectionism doesn't scale. And I have this thing about the word perfect. I don't think the word perfect is bad, but you can check out some of my previous episodes to see why. But the perfectionism part, that is the part that no longer that doesn't serve you at all, and you won't be able to scale. And then last but not least, comfort definitely doesn't scale. And you might be saying, I'm not comfortable, but if you haven't, had that urge or that feeling in your stomach or in your gut where you're like, I don't know yet. If you don't have any of that, that means you're comfortable because you're not pushing yourself out to your next edge. So you want to know something, it's the leaders who win. They are the ones who expose their thinking before the market forces their hand. They're the ones who are out there getting in front of things, shaking up things before things have to happen. We know the classic between Blockbuster and Netflix, right? People went to Blockbuster and say, hey, you might want to, check out this streaming thing. Or, they're like, oh no, people are gonna come and we're still doing our thing. We're at the top. Netflix came in, and then all of a sudden everybody had to, let's hurry up and scramble and do this whole streaming thing, because they waited for the market to force their hand before they actually exposed their thinking. They were too afraid to get out there and do something different because they were comfortable. So if you're still trying to get everything 100% right, or if you're trying to make sure that all of the data is going to give you the green light, you're already behind, because the leaders who are, 75, 80%, that's good enough for me. They're the ones who are out there leading the charge because they are willing to adapt and they stay on the ready. And the same can happen for you if you go through those strategic steps that I was talking about, your strategic risk. So again, there's a difference between strategic risk and then strategic risk is different between legacy building and simply role handling. A lot of leaders I know are just comfortable and complacent in their role, and they're doing great work. I want to say that you're doing great work in your role, but are you really moving forward, or are you just being, stagnant and playing safe? That's the difference, because if you keep staying stagnant, then just like a flat line, things eventually die. And you can do the ups and downs. But I think what people often forget, that you can do up and down and still scale towards, you can still scale up with some peaks and valleys. Peaks and valleys don't always mean we're dipping down to the lowest of the low, and we got to, always pull ourselves out of the hole. That is not what that means. You can still, go up and down with peaks and valleys, and that is strategic risk. And that is where you are legacy building, whether it's for your company or for your career, instead of just operating in a role or a title. So you want to make sure that you understand that by you staying safe, you won't get the keynote. And again, the keynote as the leader of your company, the keynote in your career, or if you're the entrepreneur, the keynote to start branching out and building your own brand within inside of your company. If you're staying safe, you won't get those keynotes. And if you're staying safe, you won't get those contracts. If you are that type of company and you're not willing to disrupt your leadership style, then you can't say, well, why am I not getting these new clients, or why am I not getting more clients, or going after the clients where I know that that we as a team can make a tremendous impact. And you won't build your category. You're just coasting in your industry. And if that's what you want to do, great. But I know the people that listen to me, they want to continue to grow and expand. and become a titan in their industries. But if you're playing safe, you won't be able to do that. So if you're ready to stop performing composure and start engineering scale, be sure to take the Leadership Intelligence and Resilience Index right now, or you will hear me refer to it as an LII. And you can go to drvernitaglenn-white.com/leader index, or it's in the description below, or it will be in the feature section. And when you take that 5 to 7 minute awareness assessment, so it's like an awareness tool, you will uncover where you are playing it safe in 5 key areas and why your decision making skill is dragging down innovation. And then you will uncover how to re engineer your risk to fuel your leadership and not paralyze it. So if you're leading a team, a division, or an enterprise, and you're tired of whispering those bold ideas, you can connect with me also at drvernitaglenn-white.com/connect. And so that you can bring this type of energy to your organization or your team, or just have a conversation to get this started to see, okay, I no longer want to play safe. I want to make sure I, do this strategic disruption so I can move my company and my team forward. So I want to say thank you so much for listening and learning with me, because you have been listening to the Remarkable Edge Executive Power Series, where we don't lead for approval, we lead for evolution. And if you've been quiet, cautious, and over controlled, this is your moment. So be sure to take the Leadership Intelligence Index, or the LII, to audit your risk posture and lead in a way that builds impact before someone else claims your opportunities. So I am Dr. V, the Brilliant Solutionist and the Master Recalibration Strategist for Brilliance, Authority, and Precision. And remember to stay bold, stay strategic, and stop calling fear by fiscal responsibility. Stop hiding behind those words. Until next time, stay on your remarkable edge. Bye for now.